In the depths of an ancient Japanese forest, where the bamboo swayed gently with the night breeze, there lived a young monkey known for his insatiable curiosity. Unlike his companions, who were content with searching for fruit and playing among the branches, this particular monkey had a special fascination with the world around him. His bright eyes always sought something beyond the ordinary, something that could satisfy his thirst for discovery. On a particularly clear night, when the full moon hung majestically in the sky, the young monkey wandered near a crystal-clear lake. The waters were so calm they seemed like a perfect mirror, reflecting not only the moon, but the entire starry sky. It was then that his eyes caught sight of something he had never seen before, the reflection of the moon in the still waters, a vision so clear and bright it seemed as though he could touch it. Marveling at such beauty, the monkey approached the edge of the lake. His heart beat faster as he gazed at the silver orb that appeared to float just below the surface of the water. What a magnificent treasure, he thought, imagining how wonderful it would be to possess something so precious. In his mind, he already saw himself carrying the moon in his hands, showing it off to all the other animals in the forest, becoming the most admired among them. Driven by this desire, the monkey reached out toward the reflection. The moment his fingers touched the water, the image distorted, breaking into thousands of tiny points of light. Confused and frustrated, he waited for the waters to calm. When the reflection returned, even brighter than before, he tried again, this time more quickly, believing he could outpace the water. Once again, the reflection vanished. Now determined, the monkey began a series of increasingly desperate attempts. He jumped from one side of the shore to the other, tried different angles, used both hands, and even partially submerged himself in the lake. Each attempt only resulted in more frustration, with the water stirring and the moon seeming to laugh at his futile efforts. The night wore on, and the monkey continued his obsessive quest. His fur was soaked, his body trembling from the cold, but his mind was so fixated on capturing the moon that he failed to notice his own suffering. It was only when an old crow, who had been watching the scene from a nearby branch, decided to intervene. "Young friend," said the crow in his raspy voice of wisdom, "what you are so desperately trying to grasp is not the real moon, but merely its reflection. Look up, and you will see that the moon you so desire is in the sky, far beyond your reach." The monkey, still panting from his efforts, raised his eyes. For the first time that night, he saw the true moon shining serenely in the sky. He then realized the futility of his actions and, more importantly, understood a deep truth. The more he tried to possess that beauty, the more it eluded him. This story teaches us that we often suffer not from reality itself, but from our attempts to possess, control, or grasp that which, by its very nature, cannot be possessed. Like the moon's reflection on the water, many of the things we desire are merely illusions created by our clinging minds. True peace comes not from trying to hold on to these illusions, but from learning to appreciate their beauty without the need to possess them. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, and like the monkey in the story, we often exhaust ourselves trying to grasp what is fleeting or illusory. True wisdom lies in learning to observe, appreciate, and let go, maintaining our inner serenity regardless of external circumstances. Long ago, in a prosperous kingdom of the ancient East, there lived a king known both for his wisdom and for his sudden mood swings. Despite all his wealth and power, he oscillated between moments of extreme joy and deep melancholy, like a ship on a stormy sea. His emotional instability not only troubled him, but also affected the entire kingdom, as his decisions shifted according to his state of mind. On a particularly difficult morning, after a restless night, the king summoned his closest advisors. "I am tired of this emotional roller coaster," he declared. "Search the entire kingdom for someone who can bring me something that has the power to calm me when I am agitated and lift my spirits when I am sad. Whoever brings such an object will receive half of my treasure." The news spread quickly, and soon sages, merchants, and masters from distant lands began to arrive at the palace. Each brought precious objects, rare crystals, medicinal herbs, sacred amulets. Some offered breathing techniques, others proposed elaborate rituals. But nothing seemed to fully satisfy the king's request. Then, a wise old Buddhist nun who lived in a cave in the mountains, heard about the challenge. She possessed no material wealth, but she carried with her decades of practice and contemplation. After meditating deeply on the matter, she paid a simple visit to a village blacksmith. When she arrived at the palace, the nun appeared unremarkable. Her robes were simple, and in her hands was only a small bronze ring. The king, already disheartened by so many failed attempts, almost didn't want to receive her. But something about her serene presence intrigued him. "Your Majesty," she said in a calm and deep voice, "this ring contains an ancient truth that, if truly understood, has the power to balance any emotion." The king, skeptically, took the ring and noticed an inscription inside. It was just 3 words: "This too shall pass." The nun continued, "When you are sad, look at these words and remember. This sadness is not permanent. It will pass like clouds in the sky. When you are extremely happy and perhaps tempted to make impulsive decisions, look again. This euphoria is also fleeting. Nothing in this world, whether pleasurable or painful, lasts forever." The king remained silent for a long moment, contemplating the ring and its meaning. He began to recall all the times he had been swept away by intense emotions, like waves pulling him into the open sea. He realized how many important decisions he had made under the influence of these emotional tides, believing that his feelings at the time were final and unchanging. "But," he asked, "if nothing is permanent, how can I find true happiness?" The nun smiled gently and replied, "True peace does not come from trying to hold on to happy moments or fleeing from sad ones. It comes from a deep understanding that all experiences are like guests in a house. They arrive, stay for a while, and then depart. The wise host does not try to expel some guests and hold others captive. He offers the same warm space to all, knowing that each visit is temporary." This story illustrates one of the Buddha's most fundamental teachings: impermanence, anicca. Just as the seasons inevitably change, our emotions, thoughts, and experiences are in constant flux. When we resist this truth, when we try to cling to the pleasant and repel the unpleasant, we create our own suffering. The king's ring was not magical. It was a reminder of the transient nature of all things. Its true magic lay in awakening awareness to this fundamental reality. Like the king, when we begin to observe our emotions with this understanding, we discover a serenity that transcends the fluctuations of pleasure and pain. In ancient Kyoto, there was a Zen monastery known for its rock garden and its peculiar master, the Venerable Non-In. Among the many visitors seeking his guidance, one university professor stood out, particularly proud of his academic knowledge of Buddhism. This professor had dedicated 2 decades of his life to studying sacred texts, writing scholarly articles, and lecturing on Eastern philosophy. One autumn afternoon, as the momiji leaves danced gently in the wind, the professor arrived at the monastery. His goal was to discuss Zen with Non-In, eager to impress the master with his vast erudition. Non-In welcomed him into his modest tea room, a space that breathed simplicity, just a tatami mat, a low table, and a few essential utensils for the tea ceremony. Barely able to contain his excitement, the professor immediately began to expound on his theories and interpretations of Zen. He spoke of ancient sutras, quoted historical masters, and elaborated on complex philosophical analyses. Meanwhile, Non-In silently prepared the tea, his fluid and precise movements contrasting with the professor's verbal agitation. When the water reached the ideal temperature, Non-In took a delicate ceramic cup, one that told stories through its golden cracks, kintsugi. He began to pour the green tea, his movements deliberately slow and mindful. The professor, still absorbed in his lecture, barely noticed when the cup began to fill. Non-In continued to pour, even as the tea reached the brim. The professor, now pausing his discourse, watched in confusion as the tea overflowed, spilling onto the table and dripping onto the tatami mat. "Master," the professor finally exclaimed, "the cup is overflowing. It can't hold anymore." Non-In, with the same calm demeanor with which he had been pouring, replied, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions, theories, and knowledge. How can I show you Zen if you do not first empty your cup?" The professor fell silent. For the first time in a long while, he felt the weight of all his accumulated knowledge, not as a light that illuminated, but as a burden that prevented him from seeing something new. In his zeal to amass knowledge, he had lost the ability to experience the present moment with a fresh and open mind. Nanin, sensing the impact of his words, continued gently. The value of a cup lies not only in its ability to hold, but also in its emptiness. It is the empty space that makes it useful. Similarly, it is the space in our mind that allows us to receive new insights. The master then picked up another cup, clean and empty. He poured just a little tea, enough to cover the bottom. "Observe," he said, "how the tea naturally finds its own level. It does not struggle, it does not strive, it simply fills the available space. Our minds should be like this, spacious and receptive." The professor watched the tea resting serenely in the cup, his own reflection distorted in the green-golden surface. He then realized that all his academic knowledge was like the overflowing tea, wasted because there was no space to truly absorb and integrate it. This story teaches us about the Buddhist concept of beginner's mind, Shoshin, and the importance of inner emptiness. Just as a cup must be empty to receive tea, our minds must create space for new understanding to emerge. True knowledge is not merely the accumulation of information, but the ability to maintain an open and receptive mind. The emptiness Nanin spoke of is not a void of ignorance, but a space of possibilities, like the silence between musical notes that allows the melody to exist. It is in this inner space that true wisdom is found, not in the words or concepts we accumulate. In the ancient lands of India, there was a man whose name struck terror into the hearts of all who heard it. Angulimala, the necklace of fingers. Born as a himsaka, ironically meaning the non-violent, he had transformed into the most feared bandit in the kingdom of Kosala. His current name came from the gruesome necklace he wore, made of the fingers of his victims. 999 fingers, with only one more needed to complete his terrible goal. What few knew was that Ahimsaka had originally been a brilliant and compassionate student. The son of a respected Brahmin, he studied at the prestigious University of Taxila. His intelligence and dedication, however, provoked envy in his peers, who conspired against him. Through lies and manipulation, they convinced his master that Ahimsaka was planning to betray him. Consumed by anger and a desire for revenge, the master imposed an impossible task on Ahimsaka: to collect 1,000 human fingers as a graduation fee. This perverse command, combined with the deep sense of injustice and betrayal, broke something inside the young student. Ahimsaka became Angulimala, a murderer who terrorized travelers on deserted roads. On a fateful morning, when Angulimala needed only one more victim to complete his mission, he spotted a monk walking serenely along the road. It was the Buddha. Something about the monk's peaceful presence intrigued him, but his mind was fixed on his goal. Wielding his sword, he ran toward the Buddha. Yet something extraordinary happened. No matter how fast he ran, he could not catch up to the monk, who continued walking calmly. Exhausted and confused, Angulimala shouted, "Stop, ascetic!" The Buddha replied without altering his pace, "I have already stopped, Angulimala. It is you who must stop." These words penetrated deeply into Angulimala's heart. For the first time in years, he felt something beyond anger and hatred. "How can you say you have stopped when you continue to walk, while I, who am standing still, you say must stop?" The Buddha explained. "I stopped long ago from harming living beings. You, however, continue to cause suffering. That is why I say I have stopped, and you must stop." In that moment, like lightning illuminating the darkness, Angulimala saw clearly the horror of his actions. The weight of his atrocities struck him with full force, and he fell to his knees, dropping his sword. "Accept me as your disciple," he pleaded. "Help me to stop." The Buddha, with infinite compassion, extended his hand to Angulimala. This very hand, which moments before could have been another trophy in his gruesome necklace, now became a symbol of redemption. Angulimala abandoned his life of violence and became a monk. His transformation, however, did not mark the end of his challenges. On the streets, people recognized him and attacked him with stones and insults, constantly reminding him of his bloody past. But Angulimala, now a practitioner of the Dharma, faced this hostility with a new weapon: compassion. When wounded by stones or words, he did not retaliate. Instead, he reflected, "This is but a small part of what I deserve for my past actions. Through this suffering, I am expiating my karma." His peaceful acceptance and genuine transformation gradually began to touch the hearts of the people. One day, during his alms round, Angulimala encountered a woman in difficult labor. Moved by compassion, he approached to help, but the people, still fearful, pushed him away. It was then that the Buddha taught him a powerful practice, the declaration of truth through universal love. By the truth that since my rebirth on the noble path, I have not knowingly taken the life of any living being, by this truth, may this woman have a safe delivery. This declaration, born of genuine compassion and true transformation, helped the woman, and news of it spread throughout the kingdom. This story teaches us that true protection does not come from walls or weapons, but from the transformative power of compassion. Just as Angulimala found redemption through universal love, we too can transform our suffering into understanding and our pain into compassion. Compassion becomes our shield, not because it isolates us from the world, but because it transforms our relationship with it. As the Buddha taught, hatred never ceases through hatred. Only through love does hatred cease.